everyone. Hi. Oh, I should probably hold the microphone. Hello, everyone. So yes, this is my, as you guys will have seen, this is my 2,000 subscriber special live stream. So today I'm going to be answering some viewers' questions and also doing a ranking of every film I've either reviewed or done a video essay on. So I've got a few questions already, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments, and I'll make sure I answer all of them. So, on Discord, Headphones UK asked me, how and when did you get into the 60s pop culture interest that is a big part of your channel? I first got into it's mainly through interesting classic rock that started when my brother, when I was about 16, my brother got was into vinyl. He's about 3 years younger than me, and he got a Jimi Hendrix vinyl and a Doors vinyl. And it's from listening to those, particularly the Doors, I kind of got into 60s music. And then I sort of checked out the Beatles because of that. I heard the Beatles a bit as a kid. My brother had the compilation CD. In the 70s they did the red compilation and the blue compilation. My brother had the CD version of the red compilation. The greatest hits from 62 to 65, I think, 65 or 66. Anyway, so I had heard them before, but I hadn't heard any of their later stuff apart from when I'd seen Yellow Submarine as a kid. But that was when I was quite little, because it was a video I had at my grandparents' house. So yeah, I hadn't seen it, heard of their stuff in ages. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into the 60s stuff. And then of course, first sort of 60s thing on my channel was my video essay on the Sergeant Pepper movie, which was my fourth video. I haven't really watched that one lately, but I did about a year ago. I released it as I edited that together with my Across the Universe video essay to get it closer to what I'd originally intended with that video. So because I'd originally thought of doing it as one video, and I was like, well, if I can do it as two, I probably should. Especially, of course, because I was new to it. But yeah, to answer your question, George, that's why I do. That's why I do. I'm into the 60s. Hello, Lewis from the UK. Nice to meet you. Great profile picture. Okay, feel free to ask a question if you have one, Lewis. I'll just see if there are any others on Discord. I'm pretty sure there were. From Eddie Barrett. Hello, Eddie, if you're watching. He asked, what's your favourite Monkees song? It changes quite a lot. I think the Porpoise song I really like, because it's quite a calm and trippy one. But I really love the lyrics of Sunny Girlfriend, which only appeared in the show once. And I think I'd prefer to hear someone do a cover of it, because I don't know, I'm not a huge fan of the arrangement, I guess, but I do like the song. So, but yeah, anyway, so yeah, it's probably Porpoise song at the moment. But yeah, it does change quite a bit. Let me see. I think that's everything from Discord. Oh, I forgot to ask everyone on Discord. Make sure I do that. Okay. Alan Clayton, hello. Alan's a big supporter of the channel. Hi, I bet you love watching your own videos. They give all that hard work. Well, yeah, I am pretty proud of everything I've done. I can hear, of course, all of my mistakes. I like pops and things that I would edit out now. or the pacing of them, especially the pacing of like the early ones, like the Pass the Ammo review. I didn't edit the gaps to be short enough. So yeah, thanks DCS Media. Congrats on 2K. Thank you very much. DCS Media, by the way, is a very good channel. Which genre of music do you often listen to? It varies. I'm not as sort of into music in general as I was when I was in my late teens, early 20s. So now it's quite a random mix of stuff. It's because if people ask me, I'll probably just say the stuff that I used to listen to. Really, it's weird. I'll have to look at. I think literally have to look at Apple Music. But so yeah, it's quite random. I've been listening to a lot of Blondie in the past couple of days. I'm listening to the Dickies recently, who are the band who did the title song of Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And they also did that punk cover of the Banana Splits theme tune. And they've done a great punk cover, sort of pop punk cover of Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues, which is like this ethereal prog rock song from the late 60s. And they've done a punk cover of it. And I think it's a really good example of how a cover can offer something that's like good but really different, which is kind of like the Bedazzled and the Bedazzled remake. I think that's a good analogy for it. It's like a really good cover song in a different genre. It doesn't eclipse the original, but it does something very different. So yeah, it's lots of sort of 70s and 80s stuff lately, really. Also a bit of Robbie Williams because everyone's been talking about him. Question from Stefan now. Hey, what was the first British comedy series or show you really fell in love with? Well, I am British, so so of course I grew up with British comedy, but it's probably I'm not it's probably Faulty Towers, I'd say, in terms of a sitcom that I sort of saw a lot. Because my mum absolutely adored it when I was growing up, so I'd pretty much watch it every day. Which does sound insane. There's nothing else my mum would be able to watch every day, but she'd be able to watch that because it's so brilliant. And then probably a few years after that, my brother became obsessed with Only Fools and Horses, so we got the box set. Just after like seeing reruns on Gold at my dad's friend's house or something like that, he got really into Only Fools and Horses, and I think that's got some really brilliant writing. Obviously, the odd jokes aged a bit, but it's not. People aren't as outraged as certain people like to think they are. A lot of it is people saying, "Oh, people would be outraged." It's like no, but. But anyway, but yeah, I think that's the the dynamic of the brothers in that I think is really good, and did a really good mix of pathos in the show. It was just right. It wasn't so much that you kind of it's enough that you understood Rodney's resentment of Del Boy, but not so much that you resented Del Boy too. Oh, you're very welcome, DCS Media. I hate headphones. I've already answered your question, I'm afraid, at the beginning. Basically, I got into classic rock because my brother got into classic rock. And then I got into the Beatles. And then I got into stuff through that. So this was when I was in my late teens, when I was in sixth form. Everyone seems to be listening to Kate Bush these days. Yeah. I know. Well, of course, I talked to Peter about working with Kate Bush in with my interview with him, but so that was part of it. Actually, I'm planning on reviewing The Line, The Cross, and The Curve, which is like a sort of like a not so much a video album, but like a more like a video EP that she made in the late 90s. It was kind of the last thing she did before a big hiatus, and Peter's in that. He comes in chasing a runaway wind machine. Um, uh, how did you come across the Rowan Atkinson Dead on Time film before you reviewed it? Literally just came up on recommended. I've been obviously been making videos on alternative comedy and watching alternative comedy, and of course, it's interesting actually. I think Rowan Atkinson and the sort of the Not the 9 o'clock News lot and Fry and Laurie, they're I think they are considered alternative comedy, but I think that sort of Oxbridge generation are considered sort of somewhere in the middle. You know, I like to joke that alternative comedy is was revolutionary because it was for people who went to less expensive private schools and didn't get into Oxford or Cambridge. But yeah. So anyway, so yeah, just the algorithm showed it to me, and I thought, oh, this is great. I should recommend it. Thank you, GG6198. I think I've got one more question. Keep asking questions, by the way, if you're watching this. In the comments on my Q&A post, Cinewhirl, who does fantastic videos comparing sitcoms with their failed American remakes, he asks, congrats on the 2K. My question would be, what shows from the past would you love to see either have a remake, reunion, or reboot? I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out, me saying this, but it's the Comic Strip Presents. I feel like a bit of a cop-out because it's an anthology series, and a lot of people ask. I think when Peter Richardson does Q&As, I don't think people realize that he has been trying to get stuff made. It's not that he's been resting on his laurels and enjoying retirement or anything. He's kept writing, and he's had a couple of things fall through, like Lion of the Day. I know he's talked about nearly got made and then it was cancelled, I think, because of the pandemic. But I would love to see another full series of it. I know he sees them as a series of films rather than a TV show, so he doesn't like them being referred to as series 1, series 2, whatever. But it's in the words of Colin Grigson, it's a convenient frame of reference. And I think it would just be good to have more variety, because then with all the weight of the expectations of it's the new comic strip just lands on one. And I think maybe I think that maybe that doesn't work in its favor necessarily. But yeah, anyway. Larsland, hello! Love seeing some familiar faces in the chat. Congratsy, I adore you so. I adore you too. We must collaborate again, because I literally, Alan Clayton in the comments here, he literally said the other day that he wants us to collab again. So the people have spoken. Yeah, I haven't chatted in ages. I must catch up with you. Lewis again. Yeah, I think Rowan Atkinson is an incredible comedy actor, especially from Blackadder to Mr. Bean and Johnny English. Yes, Johnny English was one of my favorite films growing up. It was one of the first films I saw that wasn't just a kids film. It obviously is a PG film, so it is family friendly. But yeah, I think it was probably one of the first ones that was just a comedy film rather than a kids film. But yeah, I was so disappointed after watching the coronation when I found out that they'd shown Johnny English on Channel 4. I was like, I'm crying out loud, I could have been watching that instead. For those of you who don't know, there's the climax of the film is a failed coronation scene. And I haven't seen the latest one, actually. I've only seen the first two. I saw the second one in the cinema. And I remember that being really funny. Alan Clayton again, you did a great job on the Peter Richardson interview. Thank you very much. Let's see. What YouTubers do you enjoy watching? Oh, obviously you. But then there's also Dominic Noble. I think is probably the one guy who I'm like I have to watch his videos. Um, Although I haven't seen his Little Mermaid one, but I know that I might get irrationally angry if he says that Little Mermaid died at the end because that's not what happened. I'm sure he wouldn't. I'm sure he's good and thorough, but that's definitely not what happens at the end of the Little Mermaid, guys. Um, but yeah, he's the only one who springs to mind. But big fan of Lindsay Ellis. I haven't seen her stuff over on Nebula because I'm not a Nebula member yet, but it's becoming increasingly tempting. Don't watch as many video essays as I should, really. DCS Media, have you seen any of the Oscar-nominated films for this year? I try and watch as many of the Best Picture noms during awards season. Funnily enough, no. I'm always watching videos about the Oscar race. Actually, Kayla Says, I don't know if anyone's seen that channel, but that channel's just done a really good video talking about the different controversies. And also as well as a whole video just on Amelia Perez. And then of course, more stuff came out like the I can't remember her name, but the lead actress's racist stuff. But yeah, I don't really. I'm interested in all of the discourse, but I don't tend to watch films that are modern. Really, I know it's ridiculous because I do just end up watching reviews of them, so I'll often know about the discourse surrounding it, but I won't have seen the film. I remember I saw Everything Everywhere all at once, either just before or just after it won the Oscars, but I hadn't seen any other modern films that year. Actually, I just remembered I did see Wicked. I did take my mum to see Wicked. I really enjoyed Wicked. I think they did a really good job of, because it's such the stage show I remember seeing when I was 12, and I got the Grimmery, which is the behind the scenes book about the story of how they made the musical, which is very thorough, if I remember rightly, and it's such a visually interesting show. The way they translated that to film, and obviously they don't copy any of the designs from the stage show, but there's a couple of videos on YouTube actually of interviews with like the set designer, who created like a 50-foot set for Shiz University. I don't think people realize, because of course there's the color grading, which makes everything look CGI. But it's like, no, they built all that. So they created like a 50-foot set for Shiz University, and he, and then the costume designers, also gave a really interesting interview. So yeah, they managed to make it really creative and vibrant, and I think they just about justified the whole 2-movie thing. I do think I could see where they stretched it a bit. Obviously, I'm going off like a 12 or year-old memory of it or something, but it was but it's just like the scene of Madame Morrible and Elphaba, where I was like, do we need this? Like, it's kind of justifying it, but you could kind of have the movie without it. You just have slightly less Michelle Yeoh, and you could see where they were stretching out Defying Gravity at the end. But all in all, really enjoyed the movie, and I took my mum, and my mum said afterwards, honestly, I didn't say anything, but I wasn't expecting to enjoy that at all, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, I really enjoyed that movie. I thought everyone gave great performances and stuff. Of course, I can't compare it to anything else. Although I've been watching what people are saying about Amelia Perez, and I don't think it deserves any of the awards it's being nominated for. Again, I haven't seen the film. I don't know, and I don't know the majority of what it's up against. But all the music I've heard from it is awful. And I'm a big fan of the musical film Annette, the film where Adam Driver has a baby puppet. So like musicals and weird musicals are my thing. and so-called pretentious ones are my thing. But yeah, like I know if things aren't researched to a T, I can understand, but to kind of not do any research at all, and it sounds very much as if it's applying to sort of white cis guilt, like films have done in the past, where people are voting for it because they think it's the right thing to do, and they feel like they're making a change by supporting this film. But then again, like I said, I'm being swept up in the discourse here. I have not seen the film, so but um, I was saying yes, I would love to do us. I would love for us to do another collab. Brilliant. I'll message you. Um, which comedian or actor would you absolutely love to meet in person? That's a really difficult question, actually. Uh, Probably Aid Edmondson, I guess, but I know he's very apprehensive of fans, which is obviously totally understandable. Fans are weird. I saw him live. I went to see Rich Herring's Leicester Square Theatre podcast, and it had him and Michael Sheen on at the same night, and but because he was on the first, I knew he probably wasn't gonna like stick around afterwards, so I didn't stand around waiting to see if he'd come out. But I thought, but yeah, I guess probably him. Off the top of my head, there's probably the trouble is when I'm asked a question on the spot, there's probably someone else who I'd want to meet even more that I'm not thinking of at the moment. That'll probably Steve Pemberton. I've which I have sort of met, but it was like an autograph signing thing. So I was like, "Hello," and I wrote him a letter, but I wrote it on the train, and my handwriting is awful when I'm not on a train. So I don't know if he was able to read it at all. But I wrote him. I'm sure he appreciated the effort of this like of this letter I wrote. So your show is really good. Um. So yeah, those are the two that spring to mind really. Um. Thank you. Um. Which is the best 60s rock band, the Monkees or the Beatles? It's easily the Beatles. Like I will defend the Monkees. Um. But the Beatles are better. I'm not gonna pretend one is better than the other. Um which I prefer, which I listen to more often. It's the Monkees. I've been going to London more recently, and of course, although you can get phone signal in a lot of underground stations now, um, I'm obviously traveling with headphones on without Wi-Fi, so I'm listening to music that's downloaded onto my phone. It's mostly the Beatles or the Monkees, and I find myself listening to the Monkees more because there's songs by them that I'm not as familiar with, like All of Your Toys, for example. I don't think I'd really listened to before. I've got like their whole discography apart from their more recent stuff. That's all on my phone, which I'd completely forgotten. But it's not. But I'm not that familiar with like listening to their whole albums because I know how varied they are. To be honest, um, and that's because I had so many writers and so many people coming in and working on it. I think probably the first album I listened to all the way through was the first album, which probably was a bad idea. I think The Day We Fall in Love is on that album, which is notoriously awful. And what's his name? Don Kirshner. Don Kirshner produced some good stuff. He knew what was commercial, basically. Don Kirshner. So there's an interviewer who's like, yeah, and they didn't do as well without me, did they? And it's like, well, no, but they made better music. It's just less commercial. But yeah, definitely I'd say the Beatles are better, but I find myself listening to the Monkees more personally at the moment. Um, Anyway, currently myself, I've seen Dune Part 2, Wicked, Anora, A Complete Unknown, Amelia Perez. The latter is absolute trash. The other four I really like. Yeah, Amelia Perez's reputation certainly precedes it. I am really interested in Anora, actually. I was thinking of watching that. I don't know if that's on streaming yet, but I remember seeing the trailer. And of course, like I said, I've been listening to Blondie quite a bit recently. I really like Dreaming by Blondie. Um, Best 60s band is the Four Seasons for me anyways. I'm not really familiar with them. Obviously, I know of them, and I know that Jersey Boys, isn't it? That's the musical about them. But yeah, I'm not as familiar with them. No, it isn't. It very obviously isn't. I don't know why they left the boy with Uncle Ernie, but no, it's not all right. Do you think it's all right to leave the boy with the boy who has Nazi stuff all over his jacket? Probably not, just a hint. For those of you who don't understand the reference, I'm not explaining the reference. Oh God, I do love Tommy, but yeah, that's an uncomfortable scene. Um, that's fair points for you on the Monkees. What's your favorite album by them? Probably Head. I know the stuff in between that's the basically for those who don't know, in between the tracks, there's audio from the movie, sort of lines out of context, which I think Jack Nicholson produced because he wrote the screenplay of the film and he wrote one of the songs for the film. And the film is very strange and surreal. And these tracks in between are a reflection of that. So I know those are quite tasty. Yeah, and I think that is probably my favorite album, because I think it's the Davy numbers for me that tend to be the weak ones. But it's Daddy's Song by Harry Nilsson, and that's such a solid song. And I love the video for that song so much. The dance sequence he does with Tony Basil of Hey Mickey fame, and who actually I saw in Easy Rider the other night. I should probably review Easy Rider at some point, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's probably my favorite. Second favorite is probably Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones. That's all good times. I haven't listened to them all the way through in a while, but yeah, probably Pisces and Aquarius, all good times. Again, the David numbers aren't too bad. I actually haven't heard their Christmas album yet. I haven't got round to it, and of course, I'm like, it's bad luck to listen to. I don't really believe in luck. At the same time, I'm like, I don't want to do that as bad luck. But as I haven't heard their final album, which is a Christmas album, because I've never been in the mood to listening to it at the right time. So I'll probably do something about it this Christmas, actually, just to get it over with. That, and of course, I'll probably finish reviewing the series this year. And I'll have to, find other stuff to. I will. There's other Monkey stuff that I'll have to talk about. There's the new Monkees. There's the 2 specials they did. There's Head, which really deserves a long video. But yeah, so keep asking your questions, but I might not see them straight away because I'll be on here. So the tier list, I've gone just for feature films. I'll probably do a TV series one if you guys are interested in that. But I added I won't include ADBC. I added it by mistake because I forgot it's not a feature. So I've just stuck to features. Even if they were made for television, I was going based on length rather than anything else. And you may have noticed, like I did, that it's been pretty much a year since I've reviewed a film. And I was like, oh my God, this is what's slowing me down. So, in terms of my upload schedule. So, yeah, I'll expect more films and short films reviews soon. Of course, if you have any suggestions, I do write them all down somewhere. I usually forget that I've written them down, but I do write them down somewhere. So please do recommend stuff. So I think I'll probably won't do this in order. They are put here almost in order, but I think I'll just go through them based on how easy it is for me to rank them. So as you can see, Son of Dracula is in its own little tier at the bottom because I hate that movie so much. For those of you who don't know, I reviewed it and thought, wow, this film is so bad. I should write a video essay on how bad it is. So I did a video essay on it as well as a review. And yeah, massive mistake. It's a film that's kind of devoid of conflict, so it's so infuriating to watch, and it's more infuriating when you're trying to write a plot summary for it. So yeah, it's like this completely unsalvageable mess. Just listen to the album. Honestly, just listen to the album. So let's see what would be definitely at the top. Lots of stuff I really like here. Bunny and the Bull is probably S tier. So like I said, I rewatched most of them, but a lot of them I haven't seen since. Let me take it to the top. No, there we are. So yeah, Bunny and the Bull. If those of you who don't remember, very low budget indie movie made by Paul King, who had directed The Mighty Boosh and would go on to direct Paddington 1 and 2 and Wonka, the latter of which I have not yet seen. I made the review around the time Wonka came out, which obviously was a good idea, and honestly one of the most unique films I've ever seen. It's just like on its own, it's like a solid but quirky buddy comedy, but the production design really elevates it because it sort of takes place in the main character's memory of the events that happened. So it was one bit where he looks at a snow globe that he got on holiday, and then the next flashback takes place in the snow globe, where he goes past a stack of newspapers, and then the rest of the scene is this snow scene where all the snow is made out of newspapers. And but yeah, really beautiful film, I thought. What else would go up there? I'd say probably Bedazzled. Bedazzled probably goes before that. Then probably Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I think it just goes after those two just because I probably prefer it. So yeah, for those who don't remember, Bedazzled, talking about the original here, the 1967 comedy, written by Peter Cook, for himself and Dudley Moore, music by Dudley Moore, and it's a 60s comedy, and I'd seen some of their work on not only but also their sketch show, so it's kind of expecting to enjoy it, but it still exceeded my expectations. Looks at some of the comments here. The only Monkey song I really know is I'm a Believer, but then again, everyone knows that song, don't they? Yes, because of Shrek. Actually, I remember doing that song in choir or music class or something at primary school. Headphones UK, BFG is your best review because you mentioned me in it. Yes, of course. I do love your Oliver and Company review too. Yes, that was my. I think that was my second video essay. That was it. That was my second video essay First video essay I did was on For Your Eyes Only. Calvin Dyson, that's another YouTuber I watch. He just makes videos on James Bond. I don't watch his stuff as regularly as I did when I first started the channel. But I was really into his content when I first started. I used to watch him quite a lot, and other James Bond stuff, but mostly him. One of my faves is A Field in England. Yes. Oh, that's going to be a difficult one to put up here. I personally I prefer In the Earth because I feel like I understand the film better. I do like A Field in England, and I do think it's definitely one of the best films on here. But I'm probably gonna have to go based on favorites rather than what I think is better. And there is a slight difference between the two. But yeah, both brilliant films. For those of you who don't remember, or haven't seen it because I don't think it got many views. I did it. They were shown as a double bill on Film 4 late at night, and I decided to review them as a double bill because they're same director, same lead actor, similar setting and themes. So basically, Reece Shearsmith goes to the countryside and takes shrooms. Basically, is how I describe both films. Yes. Oh, I don't like ranking. I don't know why I suggested this ranking. It's difficult. Bedazzled, I'll probably put just in the tier underneath the Bedazzled remake. So like I said earlier, it's like a cover song in a different genre. It's good. It offers something different. I don't think it's as good as the original, but if someone prefers it, I totally understand why. And it's done with respect for the original whilst doing something different. It's not like, well, remember that BuzzFeed article that was asking questions about this movie? Let's answer those questions for no reason. It's a film that loves the original but is still doing its own thing. And I think that should be the attitude towards remakes. Although a remake that has a good premise that didn't do particularly well, like Pass the Ammo, for example, I think is also another option. And, for those of you who haven't seen my review of Pass the Ammo, and again, it didn't get a lot of views. It was my first full feature film review, second review on my channel after I reviewed the Aardman short Stage Fright. And Pass the Ammo is about Bill Paxton. I confuse him with Bill Pullman. I think it's Bill Paxton, who plays this young guy who's just got out of prison, and he and a bunch of his ex-con friends are planning on robbing a televangelist with his girlfriend, and they accidentally end up on stage because something goes wrong. So they hold the televangelist and his band and stuff hostage. And it's a film that's great in parts. And actually, I was thinking, after seeing Peter Richardson from the comic strip cut stuff down, maybe what it needs is just to be cut down and have it's like it's got really interesting stuff in it, and it's like, oh, but now we need to go and outside and you need to see the investors talking, and it's like, no, we don't we need to be going back to Tim Curry playing a televangelist. That's the best part of the movie. Why are we cutting away from it? So yeah, maybe just cutting down the other stuff would do the film some good. So so yeah, I think the mid tier I'll put for C. Also good in parts is Sextet. Honestly difficult to know whether to put before after film, because with Pass the Ammo, the really good bits are really good, the boring bits are really boring. Sextet can be a bit of a slog, but it's less of a slog, but the highs of Sextet aren't as good as the highs of Pass the Ammo. So they're probably about the same. But Sextet, for those of you who don't know, is Mae West's last film. I still haven't seen any of Mae West's other films. It's she plays herself. She's well, she doesn't play herself. She plays the typical Mae West character. She's this woman who's on her sixth husband or something, who's played by Timothy Dalton, who's I can't remember how many years younger than her, but like 30 or 40 years younger than her. And which I wouldn't mind if they had more chemistry. Like I think they both give good performances, but they're not performances that give off sparks with each other, if that makes sense. I think she does it all right. I think it's just the fact that she's being fed lines through an earpiece. Her performance is a bit one note, but I think I gave it probably the nicest review out of all the reviews on YouTube. Music's really underwhelming, and one of the songs is a cover of a Beatles song. So if that's underwhelming, you know it's bad. I think without the songs, it would be almost bearable. It's kind of two farces going on at the same time. I think if the plot was a bit simpler, it would work. Or if it was that, and there's a lot of things that would make it work better. But it's like it's kind of a fun film. It's one of those let's throw a load of money on the wall and see what sticks kinds of films. And pretty much none of it does, except for Keith Moon giving the hammiest performance of his career, which for Keith Moon is quite impressive. He plays this like gay fashion designer, and he's just giving it 110%. More comments here. So Dudley Moore is a great musician too. Yes, I love his soundtrack for Bedazzled. I love the songs in it. Bedazzled and Love Me. I think in the music section, I think that's really good. Which other film and TV show reviews are you planning to review next? Well, like I said, I'm planning on doing Kate Bush Line Across from the Curve soon. I'm planning on doing reviewing some other shows directed by Peter Richardson soon. And if you're familiar with Peter Richardson's career, you know that narrows it down quite a lot. And I'm thinking of covering a particular event that is having its 40th anniversary this year that involves Kate Bush and alternative comedy. Would love to see Guest House Paradiso review. Yes, if you want to see someone do a Guest House Paradiso review, Headphones UK did like one of those in-depth reviews of it. He does those in-depth reviews where he goes through the whole film. But so yeah, I definitely I haven't seen it yet. It's the only bottom thing I haven't seen. I've seen all the live shows. I've seen the whole series. I just haven't seen Guest House Paradiso. And I'm in for something interesting. I from the clips I've seen, I think it's got some really strong stuff and some really weak stuff. And I think it's a real shame. What I will say is I think it's a real shame that Adrian Edmondson hasn't directed another film, because I really like More Bad News. I've only seen Private Enterprise once, but I remember enjoying it. I know he had a career as a music video director for quite a few years. But yeah, I think it's a shame that he hasn't done more directing. But if he's happy with what he's doing, good for him. He's been moving on to proper acting in inverted commas. I enjoy Aardman's Stage Fright. It's a great short film. Yeah, I remember it really creeped me out as a kid, so I was really curious to revisit it. I should probably look at shorts more often, again, because they're easier to they're a lot easier to make reviews of because they're shorter. But yeah, I was actually thinking of doing like Aardman April or something. Not knowing that Headphones UK, of course, has an Aardman month on his channel called Aardmate. This is before I'd watched his channel. But yeah, I had considered doing one on it. By the way, I have seen Vengeance Most Foul. Um, might do some more Instagram reviews or some other admin reviews at some point. But what I will say with Vengeance Most Foul is I liked it. I don't think it's as good as their previous stuff, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just not as good. That Harry Styles interview. I'm gonna quote that Harry Styles interview because it's like with Curse of the Were Rabbit. It feels like a movie. But it does. It really hypes you up, the opening of Curse of the Rare Rabbit, and it feels like this big adventure but of course it was made for cinema, and this wasn't. It was made for TV and Netflix. But it didn't. I'm not saying it felt stretched, but it felt like a feature length short film, if that makes sense. It had the same kind of feel as their shorts. And actually, I was noticing with the Curse of the Were Rabbit, Forbidden Planet have just done a range of merchandise. Of course, the new Wallace and Gromit merchandise, and there's no Curse of the Were Rabbit stuff. But I suppose that's because of the whole distribution through DreamWorks thing, which is a real shame because I think I definitely see the argument that the shorts are better, but I think I probably prefer Curse of the Were Rabbit. The music just gets me so hyped, like so yeah. Hi, Soapy Loves Movies. Thank you. I think I can't remember how many subs you're on. Are you on 2K yet? Everyone should watch Soapy Loves Movies. Soapy Loves Movies is the person who does all of my avatars. She's amazing, and she's also has a channel where she reviews mostly reviews like horror B movies and stuff. I have 1.26k. Oh well, everyone watching this, all two of you, go and subscribe to Soapy Loves Movies. Anyway, so Magic Christian, similar film to Sextet. Probably enjoyed it more than Sextet. Probably enjoyed it more than Pass the Ammo. Probably felt like less of a slog during the less funny parts than Pass the Ammo did, unfortunately. You see, this is why rankings are so difficult. Let me see. Similar to Pass the Ammo, Whoever Slew Auntie Roo, I think I'd like to see remade because, like, it's almost there, and it's an interesting concept, which I think is the main thing for a film. The kids' performances aren't particularly bad, but they aren't particularly good. But of course, I'd say that a lot of the blame for child actor's performance lies in the direction. The more so, the younger the kid is. But yeah. It's difficult because, of course, I've seen this one so long ago. So yeah, I guess that I am not good at this. Across the Universe, that's an easy one. That should be A tier. It's not perfect. If I was just doing it based on how good I thought it was rather than how much I liked it, it would probably be B tier. But I do really like it. I think it has issues. I think it loses its way a bit when Bono comes on. And so what's the point? That, and it's not confident enough. I mean, I say confident enough. It may just have been an age rating thing because I know that they had to pretend they were smoking weed. They literally mime smoking weed in it rather than actually smoking weed, and you probably wouldn't notice it. But they're actually miming the weed. So the fact that there's an obvious lesbian character, but they don't state it as explicitly as they could have done is probably an age rating thing, especially considering this was like 2007. But again, I'd like to see a stage version of this. It's directed by Julie Taymor, who was the director of the stage version of The Lion King. So it's really visually stunning work, and it's style over substance, but not style without substance. And I think the style over substance thing puts people off. But it's not a load of slop. It's a film that does have heart and does have something to say. But yeah, I'd like to see a stage version of this. At least tightening up the bit with Bono, which didn't feel like it needed to be there. But yeah, I'd love to see similar creative stuff in the how that could be adapted creatively for stage. Lewis again, I liked Vengeance Most Foul, but I thought that it dragged a little bit. Because the Were Rabbit had a lot more going for it. Yeah, it was definitely, it was high stakes and high pace, and and the new film didn't feel like that. It felt like something nice to watch on Christmas Day. It felt like a TV movie. And that's, I'm not necessarily saying that I thought it was crap or anything. I didn't, but yeah, the Curse of the Were Rabbit is such an exciting film, at least to me. Obviously I've got rose tinted glasses because I grew up with the film, but it's such an exciting film that Vengeance Most Foul just obviously pales in comparison. But I love Norbot. I mean, obviously I'm a Reach Smith fan, but I'm happy lifting Norbot. And the bit of Norbot charging is just so funny. Oliver and Company, I'll put that in B, so that there's something to go there. But Oliver and Company it's like, I made a video on how the soundtrack was kind of messy, and I do like the soundtrack. Like, as songs, I do enjoy it, but in terms, it doesn't feel like it had. They're all by different songwriters, if memory serves. It doesn't feel like it's very coherent. It feels like they went and asked someone to write the song for the film, rather than the films being written as part of the story, which is like how it should be done. It's how Dashman and Alan Menken did it, and how the Sherman brothers did it. They're very involved in the structure of the film. It feels very much like that like they made the film and they were like, okay, we'll ask someone to write a song for here. But it's still, it's a fun film. It's serviceable. It's not, definitely not. I don't know. I mean, it's certainly not as bad as HBO sequels. I don't know if it's a bit. It's like an okay Disney film. It's like a film that you don't really need to watch more than once, I don't think. But yeah, it's not great. It's not dreadful. So that's why I've put it there. But again, I haven't seen it in a very long time. Bedknobs and Broomsticks, I really love. I'm putting it in the A tier, but I'm gonna say I am putting the extended cut in the A tier. There are two different cuts of the film. There's only one video on YouTube, I think, talking about the extended cut, and it's by people who really aren't fans of the extended cut, which is fine, but I definitely disagree. So if we're going back to Curse of the Were Rabbit now, Curse of the Were Rabbit is my favourite, but I think I am biased due to the subject matter. Yeah, the whole horror thing. And of course, I back in the good old days, they had special features and had a whole other disc telling me how they made it, and how they came up with the system for puppeteering the rabbit without touching the fur. They had like Allen keys to turn the thing, and yeah. Anyway, Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I'm definitely going to do a video on the extended cut where I defend the extended cut of the film. Basically, the film was supposed to be about, I can't remember how many, like 2 or 3 hours long, and then it was cut down so that they could show it at Radio City Music Hall, and then they restored that cut in the 90s, but some of them were with sound alikes for the actors that don't sound quite as good because they didn't have the audio for the extra footage. And I can see why people are like, "Oh, it's just extra stuff weighing the film down." But to me, it's a film that was made to be this length, and it works better as this length, and it's cutting out, kind of the important character stuff. Otherwise, it's just like a fluffy little kids film. And I feel the extended cut also a fun kids film, but it's got some heart in there as well. It's got some sadness, a little bit of sadness to contrast against that. As we're talking about Curse of the Were-Rabbit, I'll put Wolf Girl here. Wolf Girl is a film with Tim Curry in it. It's a made-for-TV horror film. And again, messy but fun. So it's got Tim Curry as the ringleader of this freak show. It's got Grace Jones in a small role as this sort of gender-bending performer. And the main character of it is this girl born with this who performs as the wolf girl, who has this medical condition where hair grows out of her face. So it's kind of a horror film that has some really made for TV. It has some interesting ideas, but it has some confusing things where it's kind of looks like it maybe they at some point it was supposed to be a period film and they ran out of budget for it, or they decided against making it a period film. I might be wrong, but it's just based on stuff that you see if you see my review, you know what I'm talking about. But and also the sideshow stuff, it's aware that showing the sideshow songs is the most entertaining part of the film. So it shows that more than the other parts of the film. And whilst it is more entertaining, it's like, but is this outweighing the story? But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's not perfect by any means, but I did really enjoy it. Again, if I'd seen all these films more recently, it'd be much easier. So I'm not exactly sure where I put it, but I'd say it was probably better than Past the Ammo. It's probably more enjoyable, like overall. Sergeant Pepper movie, I'm putting D tier. Lots of people in my comments have said, "Oh, I really like it." If you like it, anything that I don't like, that is absolutely fine. I am happy for you. People go in my comments being really defensive, and I understand that if people don't like same things I like, I get defensive too. But like, there's no need to have a go, man. I know this is probably falling on deaf ears because I know like you guys in my comment section in my live stream probably aren't one of those people, but I think Son of Dracula's definitely made me see this a bit kinder. But it's kind of fun. It's kind of worth seeing. Music's not bad. I mean, obviously it's Beatles, but like I said, Sextet had a Beatles song that fell completely flat. It's Honey Pie, by the way, a cover of Honey Pie by Dom DeLuise. And but Sgt. Pepper's is a spectacle, and the actress, I think she got a Razzie for it, the poor thing. The actress who played Lucy in that, who I thought was the standout performance of the whole film, and this was like pretty much her only film, I think. And I got a comment from someone who said, "Oh, I know her. She's doing really well. She's still singing for a living and doing what she loves." And I was like, "Oh, good for her," because I felt so disappointed for her watching the film, thinking if only you were in a better film, you would have had more of a career. But yeah, it for a lot of people, if having a career for them means just working in music and continuing to be paid to do that. So if that's for Xanamit, that's what she's getting. So I'm really happy for her. Anyway, BFG probably high A tier. Again, it's like Bedals of Broomsticks. I view it with rose tinted glasses. Um, but it is definitely a film that is better than it has any right to be. For a made for TV film by the animation studio behind like Danger Mouse. You know, it is like the effects animation and the um backgrounds, everything really elevate it. Also the plot, you know, good Roald Dahl plot, good voice acting and everything. But it's really the effects animation and this is difficult. The effects animation and the backgrounds are what really elevate it. Let's see. Skidoo, it's definitely one of these clusterfuck films. Um, Probably more entertaining than Sextet, definitely. So yeah, like Magic Christian, like Sextet, fun film with a good idea and good music, but it's kind of a mess in execution. Pretty good cast. It's Groucho Marx's last film. Carol Channing, I thought was just a ray of sunshine in this film. Great Nilsson score. But it is How Do You Do, Fellow Kids, the movie. But you know, it's a really interesting artifact. You know, it's this 60-year-old man directed this who was like this prestigious director. He dropped acid and was like, right, I'm gonna make a movie about how the young people are all right and LSD is fun. And Timothy Leary, who turns up in the trailer, who was like Timothy Leary, for those of you who don't know, was this famous advocate for LSD. So he's not in the movie. He just turns up in the trailer saying, "Yeah, kids, you should take your mum and dad to see this to get them turned on." Which obviously turned on meant something different then. But but yeah. Anyway, Ruthless People, probably high B tier. Doesn't get a lot of use because it's kind of not the kind of film I usually talk about. But basically, it's a farce film starring Danny DeVito and Bette Midler and Judge Reinhold, and it's a really good film. It's a really funny film, but the plot twists are probably the biggest laughs that it gets. So therefore, when you rewatch it, it gets less funny when you rewatch it because you remember the plot from last time. And but it's years apart when I've seen it. I've seen it 3 times and it's been years apart. But because it's such a those plot twists are so funny, I remembered them. So yeah, definitely recommend this film, but it's not as good when you rewatch it, unfortunately. Blue Money TV movie, and you can tell it's a TV movie, but it's probably a lot more consistent than the C tier films. It's a TV movie written for Tim Curry about this guy who's a musical impressionist, and he accidentally, well, kind of accidentally, he sort of steals some money and then regrets it, but then he can't get rid of the money. So it's about him trying to. He's from Northern Ireland, so it's about him trying to run away to Ireland to. I can't remember if he's Irish or Northern Irish, but I don't want to get. I don't want to say the wrong thing about that. But anyway, it's about so he tries to like escape to Ireland with the money, but then the crooks who own the money are after him, and then other people are after him. I can't remember exactly what happens, but basically, it does feel like a TV movie. It does almost feel like a showreel for Tim Curry, but it just about manages to pull it off. You know, it's a solid script. There's a playwright, I think, who wrote it, an Irish playwright, if I remember rightly. So yeah, Probably doesn't have the highs of some of the films here, but it's the most consistent. Burke and Hare, probably high C tier. Again, inconsistent film. It's probably not a film. I've probably laughed less if I watched it a second time. It's not as funny as you'd expect from like the cast and that kind of thing. But it's fun. I enjoyed it. It was trying to do an Ealing comedy with gore. And it doesn't quite work, but it's still. I'd still say check it out if a fan of those involved. Oh, give my regards to Broad Street. Where do I put you? Better than the Sergeant Pepper movie, I'd say. Is it better than Sextet though? Possibly. Basically, Give My Regards to Broad Street is it had a lot of potential. I think if it just stuck to being music videos, or if it had a stronger script, I think if it had a director who had more experience, it was like a director who'd only done TV before. So I think if it was an established director who could go, this is a nice script, Paul, but let's work on it a bit, I think it would have been a better movie. As it is, it's worth watching if you're a fan of Paul. Not really worth watching if it isn't. If you're not, so Russell's definitely A tier. Yeah, probably put it top of A tier. Yeah, it's a very, very good film. I didn't get the time to watch my review of that, but I don't remember having any faults with it. I know Lars Land did a great video on it recently, reacting to it for the first time. Lars Land, for those of you who don't know, is a Beatles expert. I did a live stream with them about a year ago when the Beatles episode of Doctor Who came out, because she hadn't seen Doctor Who before. I mean, they hadn't seen Doctor Who before. Sorry to misgender them. So yeah, did a great live stream with them, and definitely need to collab with them again soon. BFG, one of those movies I loved as a kid, but I was really scared of the evil giants. Yes, it was like just scary enough that you were really scared, but not too scared to watch the film. That's the balance it managed to do. But yeah, they got that just right. Actually, they didn't. I haven't seen the new BFG film, but I've heard the giants in that aren't scary, and therefore don't really work. It's like, well, they eat children. How can you mess up villains who eat children? Surely that should be scary. Faster Pussycat Kill. I think I'll put here. It's a sort of trashy sexploitation film, but it's a very good trashy sexploitation film. It's kind of better than it has any right to be, really. It's about 3 murderous go-go dancers, and it's shot on a shoestring budget, and but solid little thriller, just with women in revealing clothes, really. James Bond, I'm gonna have to put quite high up here, which probably won't be a surprise to many of you. So I think I'll put Skyfall here and For Eyes Only here. I did a video essay about why I thought For Your Eyes Only was flawed. It's basically something Calvin Dyson had pointed out in a video, and I'd made a whole video essay on it, really. So really, I've got Calvin Dyson to credit for that. And I've got him to credit for me looking at the James Bond films critically at all. I think it's really good. I think he might follow me on Twitter. So I was really involved in Bond Twitter when I started my account. I was planning on making far more essays on James Bond, particularly on the portrayal of women. But then that ended up becoming like a whole big project where I'm like, I have to come back to this when I know how to make videos. Because it was huge. It was like covering all of the films, so it would have taken forever. So, like I said, I'm not doing ADBC because it's not a full feature length. It's like half an hour. And so yeah, I'm just left with Filled in England and the Earth, and they're definitely great films. It's just a case of where am I going to put them, really. I think I'm gonna put them like that. They're probably the same kind of quality. I just feel like I understand In the Earth more, which is why I prefer it personally. But I do love A Field in England. I mean, I've put it above two childhood favorite films. But yeah, it's really chalk and cheese comparing these. So where's the thing where I can download the? There we go. So, do I want to change any of this? No, the tiers I'd probably move around if I actually watch these films all back to back. But as it is, I'm pretty happy with what I've got there. Maybe I'd move Sextet down to D, I guess, but yeah. That's fine. Let me know if you guys want me to do this again, either with short films or with TV series. Because, like I said, I've mostly been doing TV series recently. So, if there are any films or short films you want me to do, let me know. I haven't done Alice Cooper in a while. I was planning on doing like a whole series on like a whole full part series on the concept albums. But the trouble is that the first one I did was based on a comic book, so it's very easy to link up the songs with the plot in the comic book. With the other ones, they're far more abstract, and there's different theories online as to what they all mean. And also, I don't own physical copies of these albums, and I believe some of them have liner notes that explain some of it. And I've also seen people say that Stephen isn't a coherent character that goes all the way through, that he's a motif, which probably makes more sense. So, so yeah, I'm not sure if I'll do a kind of breakdown the same way I did for The Last Temptation. Also, bit of a black spot the fact that Neil Gaiman did Last Temptation, which I don't know if you've seen the news, but yikes. So yeah, I'm going to be I'm probably going to be changing that title and thumbnail to something that isn't Neil Gaiman related. But anywho, but yeah, I'm thinking of doing like Welcome to My Nightmare or something at some point soon. These aren't the stuff that are like written and ready to go. This is stuff like maybe I'll review that. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions, gamers publishers have acted quickly. They have with the most recent allegations. The original allegations came out in like last June or July, and they were from like Boris Johnson's sister. And they were on a podcast, and they were like, right, we're going to do this expose as a true crime podcast, which is not how you break news. Like, if you compare that to the Russell Brand thing, like, it was everyone in the UK had free access to that information instantly on the same day. There was an article that was behind a paywall, but it was on Channel 4, which meant that anyone could watch the same information for free. The Neil Gaiman one, they stretched the allegations out over a podcast that I'm pretty certain you had to pay for, if I remember rightly. So it was basically, obviously, the worst thing that could happen in Neil Gaiman was have these allegations come out. The best thing for him was for them to come out in this way, because people had doubts about the intentions because of the journalists, because of how scummily they did that, and that kind of, and then they buried it behind a paywall. So but there's, I think the most shocking thing about it was how well he managed to hide that pattern of behavior because of his public image. Because he was so beloved, and so, I mean, I made a whole post about this, but basically, with Harvey Weinstein, it was so easy for everyone to believe, because every story about Harvey Weinstein, for those who weren't in the know, was still that he was a thug. So for this to come out about Neil Gaiman, it was kind of the opposite of what everyone who followed him believed. So yeah, on that cheery note, does anyone have any other questions they want to ask me, or any suggestions for future videos? I'm going to give it a minute. But yeah, in terms of future stuff for the channel, obviously I'm going to continue with the Monkees videos until I finish the series. If anyone has any other ideas for episodes shows that I can do individual episodes reviews of, let me know. I've got some idea of what I will be doing, episode by episode, but it's got to be a show that I enjoy enough, but also a show that I feel comfortable sort of picking apart, because with Monkees, the quality, I love it, but the quality really varies, so it's quite easy to pick apart. Did you consider the Prisoner TV series? No, I haven't. I haven't seen it. I have been watching The Avengers lately, which it's on Great TV and Great Action. Both show reruns of The Avengers and the New Avengers. And I've just been getting really into that, and I've started watching bits of Randall and Hobkirk as well. So I'm curious about watching that, and of course I know that it's a show that's been remade. So I'm really curious about watching the remake, because that sounds obviously something that'll be interesting to write a video about. What's the other thing that they show? They show another. Oh, The Persuaders. I've seen like 2 episodes of The Persuaders. I keep managing to watch the same episode of The Persuaders 3 times. That's my problem. But I'd definitely like to see more of that. So yeah, that kind of sort of 60s and 70s action adventure kind of series. I've seen a tiny bit of The Saint. I'd like to watch more of that, actually. Avengers, yeah, good one. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. It's just the color stuff that they're doing reruns of, which is of course is when the show got to its most weird. But it manages to pull it off, with the charm and charisma. I'm really curious about watching the film, because also I think that from what because I've seen those sort of bad movie reviews, sort of going in depth into it. And on one hand, from the looks of it, they did doing the camp again, which modern critics might not necessarily get. But I've also, from the clips I've seen, the Ralph Fiennes and Uma Thurman, from what I remember from the clips I've seen, had no chemistry together and no charisma individually in that film. And that's not true of them as actors in general. I think that Batman and Robin isn't perfect, but it's certainly a misunderstood film. And I think Uma Thurman really understood the assignment in that. And I think Ralph Fiennes was very charismatic in Grand Budapest Hotel. But from the clips I've seen, they're just there's no charisma or chemistry, and the charisma and chemistry is what carries the Avengers really when it gets silly. Um, it's such a pleasurable experience because of the charisma in it. Um, but anyway, so yeah, I think I'll call it a night then. So thank you very much, guys. Lovely talking to you, and I'll probably do live streams again soon. Don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I'll definitely want to get back into the habit of doing them. So yeah, thanks, guys. See you soon. Bye bye.